Order for the City of San Juan Commission today, May 12, 2015. If we can rise for the invocation. Chief Gonzalez, can you lead us in an invocation?
Let's bow our heads. Dear Lord, we come before you. Give us the wisdom and all the courage to make the right decision for the City of San Juan. Bless everybody in attendance and everybody that's out there also. And also all the police officers in the nation. All this week is National Police Week. Please pray for them and for all the families that we continue to lose officers every year. But also pray for our citizens that give us the greatest support and the greatest love that we need in order for us to continue, doing our public service. So in your name we pray.
Amen. You can face the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Just Ramirez, anybody in public comments? Under item 5, ordinance A, consider ordinance for the rezoning request from single-family residential to neighborhood commercial district at property legally described as Lot 2, Unit Number 4, small subdivision Number 1, located at the 1600 block of North Marianne Street, requested by Romeo Jimenez. Is there a motion to remove from table?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor state aye.
Aye.
All right, is now open for discussion. Mr. Cervantes.
At the last meeting, this item was tabled. We had a public hearing, and it was brought up the case further to the east along 495. I sent some information via email, and I also included it in your packet for the other case. And in the other case, the main difference between that and this case is that those lots have frontage on 495.
Already designated.
They have frontage. The part of the property has a side on 495, which any property that has a frontage on 495 lends itself for commercial purposes. But this lot on Marianne Street does not have frontage on Marianne Street, and that's the main reason. That's the second lot, and that's the main reason why the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended denial. And then, like I mentioned at the last meeting, because we received a petition signed by 20% of the property owners, 20% of the area within 200 feet, is going to require 4 votes for the zoning to go through for affirmative votes.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
How many houses are around the area, more or less?
Within the 200 feet?
Yeah.
About 6
more
or,
or less, ballpark.
6 or 7.
7? Okay.
There's houses immediately to the west, to the east is some commercial, but there's a large house in there, which is at Dr. Cantu's. You have houses to the south is vacant, which belongs to Mr. Jimenez. And then to the west, you have houses all along there. And then on the north, there's a house, but it's vacant, it's for sale. That property to the north is already some commercial.
Out of those 6 or 7, how many were against this rezoning?
Well, it's hard to tell. Well, Dr. Cantu is one for sure.
Right, other than that.
We got an email from, and it's in your packet, but it's hard to tell where they're coming from. They don't really specify where they live. During the public hearing, it was the Cantu family that was in opposition.
Right.
Nobody else other than the Cantu family.
If they were to sell, if we were to own and they were to sell, they could have access in and out through 495.
Well, as long as the properties remain together, yes.
Right. Okay.
But like I explained at the last meeting, you have the potential of the properties being split up. So you have these 3 different lots. So if that happens, then this lot could potentially have no frontage on 495. Right now, it cannot does because it's part of the 3 lots, the 1, 2, and 3. But it could be split up in the future. You never know what will happen in the future.
Well, I think the planning and zoning took a good look at it, and I think we've discussed the And I'm glad you found that information on the other properties, the distinction between them. And so they have recommended that it be denied.
For this case, yes.
Okay.
In the previous case that you talked about, it was a split vote in favor by the Planning and Zoning Commission, and then the City Commission approved it. But those lots do have frontage on 495. This lot does not.
Staff is also
Yes.
recommending denial.
Exactly, yes.
Is there a motion to deny the rezoning as explained by Mr. Cervantes and voted on?
Sorry, Mayor, and if I may ask a question of Mr. Cervantes? Mr. Cervantes, and to require the 3/4 votes, the law says that at least 20% of the landowners, and in this case, it'd be immediately adjoining Mr. Jimenez's lot, correct?
It's within 200 feet, it has to be 20% of the area.
Yes, and you
Signing a petition. We did get a letter in opposition. That owner, which is Dr. Cantu, he comprises 40% of the area within 200 feet. So just that one signature triggered the supermajority vote.
Okay, so you've satisfied the requirement in your mind.
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
because he owns a lot of property just east of this property.
Okay, thank you.
Is there a motion for denial?
So move.
Is there a second? I'll second that. All in favor state aye. Aye. All
Aye.
It doesn't pass, so it gets
It
denied.
fails.
Thank you. Item under 6, contractual final plats. A, consider authorizing interim city manager to renew the waste disposal agreement between the city of Edinburgh and the city of San Juan. Ms. Gonzalez?
This is a renewal, Mayor, Commissioners. We have been with the City of Edinburgh since 2005. Their prices have not changed with this new contract. This contract would be up to 2025. We do all our waste with them, with the exception of tires. Their tires are recycled through another company, UTW.
And they're the only folks available as far as for disposal. There's no other,
Well, they're private companies, my understanding, BFI, but they're a little bit higher.
but this is
than-
for actual landfill use, though,
Yes,
isn't it?
this is
Okay.
landfill use, Mayor.
Okay. I know the contract talked about, was it 5 years? Every 2 years? You've seen the contract for the long time, and it has the ability for us to get out, because we can't enter a contract longer than a year.
Yes, we put in the non-appropriation clause, Mayor.
Okay.
That allows us to, if we do not have the, we can get out of it that way. Yes, because they wanted, I believe, was it 5 or 10 years? Oh, it's 5.
It was 5.
5 years. So we put the non-appropriation clause.
Is there a motion for approval as presented?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. All in favor state aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Next item, consider authorizing the interim city manager to enter into a contract for architectural design services with PBK for the public safety building substation. Ms. Gonzalez.
After the city attorney reviewed the contract, which is very extensive, Mayor, I'm going to let him go ahead
Okay.
and take this agenda.
Very well.
On the PBK.
Council?
Mayor and City Commission, we met with PBK, Mr. Alvarado, who is in the audience, and with the chief to discuss the terms of the contract. I reviewed the contract for legal issues, and we hammered all those out. We have all the insurance in here. We have any blanks that have been filled in. There was an issue having to do with if they were terminated or they quit, how much are they going to charge us for using their documents? That was eliminated. And the only other issue we had with that the city chief negotiated with Mr. Alvarado was the rate that the city will be paying the architects. And I believe they arrived at 8% of construction costs. So everything has been filled in, everything has been reviewed and revised and agreed to.
I have a few questions on the
Yes, ma'am.
contract and on prior to, and I know that we got some representatives from PBK present. Is that correct? I know that there's been some issues in other, I guess you all are a company based out of where?
Corporate offices in Houston, 6 offices throughout the state.
Okay. Okay. I read up on several instances back in 2011. There were some sanctions against PBK. I might have been out of the Corpus office, and there was another one, maybe Allen ISD, that you all were, the company was involved. What have you done as a company to make sure to prevent those types of sanctions, or things that you've done to make sure that that's not happening in your corporation, especially here?
Good evening, Commissioners,
Good
Mayor.
evening.
My name is Eli Alvarado, Associate Principal with PBK. Regarding those sanctions, there were some items that were brought up, and those were taken care of through the proper, I guess the Texas, the governing board, the sanctions, the Association of Architects. So there was I guess a fine that was associated, so that was covered, but nothing else came from that. And as far as Allen ISD goes, we're continuing to do work there. We are one that stands behind our work, and so we're not one of these firms that sue anybody. We were contracted to do a job, so that's what we do. So we got with the contractor. We put up some money on our end. He put up some money on his end, and together we're working everything. We're not getting any attorneys involved. We're not getting anybody together, and we're fixing whatever needs to be done. So we haven't had any issues with them, continuously working with them, and still continuing to date to work with them. They are using temporary facilities, and those are facilities which we also designed and constructed. So there's no problems with those either.
I think whatever necessary steps needed to be made.
Whatever needs to be done,
have been
whatever's
taken care of, and haven't faced anything as a company since 2011.
No, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Yes, ma'am.
I've got questions, Council. I'm just going to go through some areas. I guess to understand what you did, you took the original contract and then you delineated some things
Yes.
that you're not including. Is that correct?
That's correct, Mayor.
Okay, so there was a few, I think, that make reference back that kind of leave a gap. So I'm going to go through the ones that I picked up on, if we can just follow with me. I'm using, I guess, the top contract that was used. I don't know if that's the one that you actually worked on or not, but I'm going to go over that one, the very first one that was included in the package. Under Section 2.5, the architect shall maintain the following insurance duration of the agreement. If any of the requirements set forth below exceed the types of limits the architect normally maintains, the owner shall reimburse the architect for any additional cost. What would be a situation that happens, where we're going to be responsible for something that they would not have?
The architect shall maintain the following insurance for duration. If any of the requirements set forth below exceed the types and limits that the architect normally maintains, the owner shall reimburse. This would be if we require they have more insurance than what they have. And this is the insurance they agreed to provide us, so there's not going to be an issue of, we're going to require 1.5. They're only providing 1 million. We would have to put in the 500,000. That's what this section means. So,
Okay. So based on the limits which we are incorporated into this contract, is this the ones that we require for any contractor that comes in or anybody that comes to do business with us?
yes, this is what I spoke to with Ms. Gonzalez, because
Okay.
I obtained the RFQs that were sent out, and this is what we requested.
Okay.
Yes.
So it's in compliance?
Yes.
Okay. Under Section 3.13,
3.13.
it says, as soon as the the date of this agreement, the architect shall submit to the owner approval schedule for the performance of the architect's services. The schedule initially shall include anticipated dates for commencements, construction, substantial completion, and it goes on. And this one, in relation to another one, which is the termination, this talks about how it begins and how they'll start the work. But we've got one that says, if within a year we do not act upon the contract, then they're able to come back, and we would have to, my understanding, we would have to enter into another agreement for remainder of that. And let me see if I can find it. I'm trying to see how we tie that phrase to what happens, and I think it's under section towards the back. This is under Article 4, Section 4.3.4. It says, if the services covered by this agreement have not been completed within 12 months of the date of this agreement through no fault of the architect, extensions of the architect's services beyond that time shall be compensated as additional services.
Under 0431.
Right. And then we have one where they're making scheduling.
See if I. Okay. And then within 431, it indicates that if it's not through fault of theirs, then we have to pay for additional services?
Right. So they're doing their scheduling, and my question in this is, if we're contracting, because their contract states that they're going to see through the construction phases, through the bidding process, through the construction as a project develops. Now, if we're not gonna start in a year because of funding, because we need to acquire funding first and above all, if we were to enter into a contract now, we don't have an identified funding source for the building itself. What does that do to these clauses here?
Sorry, Mayor, I'm not following you. I'm looking at 431. I don't see that section. Is it 431 that you?
I have section, it's Article 4, and it's 3.4. It's 4.3.4.
Oh, 4. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Article 4.
Before Article
Okay,
5.
if the services covered by this agreement have not been completed within 12 months of the date of this agreement, through no fault of the architect, extension of the architect's beyond this time shall be compensated as additional services. Okay, whenever I read that, I was thinking that we were talking about services covered by this agreement have not been completed within 12 months of the date. I was
From the
thinking
signing of the agreement. That's because that says from the execution of this agreement.
extension. I don't see execution of this agreement. I assumed it meant from the time that we started till completion, not when we signed it. If the services covered by this agreement have not been completed within 12 months of the date of this agreement, okay, I see what you're saying, because of the date of this agreement, not,
Right.
okay, through the fault of the architect. Okay, Mr. Alvarado, whenever we're talking about this, are we talking about the full span, or?
I can sit here today, we can revise it, we can take that clause out. It's just as we progress, that's when you will pay us. If we don't do it, if we need to wait a year, if we need to wait 18 months, then we will wait 18 months until that funding is secure and we can proceed with that.
And so what is a practice to, because the contract, it sounds like that, let's say that we were to agree tonight.
Then we would begin the schematic design phase. And with that phase, we would not be able to continue to the next phase until we would come forward to you with an approval. And with that approval, we would need to establish the scope of work. We would need to establish the budgets. We would need to establish a schedule that's for you.
Right, so would there be something that we need to include within this contract, that if only schematics are being done, first and above all, we have to find the funding for the schematics, because you're not gonna draw them without getting paid once you're done. So we have to identify that now. And then the other is that once that's completed, to identify, then the other, to include within this contract that we would have the ability to stop, and we're not gonna now start compensating differently because we have not ended ours in 12
We actually
months.
wouldn't begin anything until that funding is secure.
So when you say schematics is not included in that clause right there? In that 4.3.4?
It is, schematics will be enter into the negotiation for the contract. We enter into a contract, and then we will sit down with you to establish, again, the schedule as it's acceptable to you. We'll establish the scope of work, what it's all going to entail, and then we'll establish what the is. If we cannot secure the funding, then we won't proceed until you all can provide us with what funding, what we're going to be designing to. We don't want to design something elaborate or something big when we know we're not going to be able to fund it. So we will wait until that is established so we can come back to you, and that way we can present to you the scope of work, the budget, and the schedule.
Right, so really, for you to actually even take that step, you would need to have to understand from us what we're going to put into the...
Correct, yes, ma'am.
Mayor, if I may, a couple of questions. Mr. Alvarado, this is a boilerplate AIA contract, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And we can amend it before we, enter into that agreement. And you've already said that you're willing to eliminate this paragraph?
Correct.
Okay. I'd recommend that we do that if that's amenable, and council, if we could do
So
that.
it's clearer, yes. Yeah.
And then I guess rectify it
Just,
with the...
I'm sorry, Mayor, if I
Okay,
may
go ahead.
also. You've mentioned about funding. Chief, do we not already have funding identified for this project?
We have funding identified through the asset forfeiture program.
Which needs to be expended before the end of this year?
Well, that was at the start of the process that we started back in October, November. We have spent some money, and we had budgeted the money already in our current budget. So we're okay with the funding. We have some.
To pay their services, is that what you're saying? or the funding of the project?
Well, it depends on the project. I know that we decided not to tax our residents for a new public safety building,
Right.
but we have asset forfeiture funds that, as we discussed, within this process, is that building a substation or in phasing in a public safety building. So there is funding that we need to spend.
And I remember during the interview phase, Mr. Alvarado, when we talked about this particular thing, if we were to say, for example, we've identified 1.2,
We have more or less,
I know some has come in.
yes, more or
Recently.
less. I think that as we move along, every month, money is being deposited to our account, so that's great news. So funding is right now secured more or less about 1.4. So
And as I mentioned, when we went through the interview process, you did mention if we were to say this is our budget, that you would be able to design within that budget. And that's one of the things that I heard you say that I didn't quite hear from some of the others, which is one of the reasons why, I really liked your presentation, because you're willing to design within our constraints, financial constraints. And so I just want to be clear on that, because,
That's
as
correct.
we proceed, we're going to be having more meetings. There's going to be some public input, as we've discussed as well in the past. And then, once we have the public input, when we have commission input, once we have the department's input as well, you'll still be able to stay within the identified funding.
That's correct. According to our contract, we are to design within the budget that you all give us. That is correct.
But as we do talk about the timing, the one issue that with that particular paragraph is, as Chief said, that asset forfeiture fund, will grow, and our department has been really blessed in being able to catch the bad guys, which is great, and so that will grow. And so, as far as that budget, it could grow as well. So, as that grows, you can adjust that as well.
We can adjust it, or we want to
so the
stick
issue
to the
with the-
original.
Right, and so the issue with the 12 months, it would be, maybe we do cut out some things initially, but then we want to maybe put them back in, and so that'll push that 12-month period a little bit.
At your discretion, yes, sir.
And what do you do about the infrastructure? I know one of the things that we've spoken about first and above all, we're doing the infrastructure in the adjacent subdivision, but we still haven't tapped into the infrastructure on the property itself. Do we have a sense of what that's going to be? Is that something who looks at that? Is it Mr. Cruz and along with them, or?
yeah, Mayor, Ronnie has looked at that already, and just to clarify something also, and Mayor Lieutenant Mayor, is that the asset forfeiture, we were also looking at the fact of funding the infrastructure there, but with the street improvement and drainage project that was approved already, that's going to alleviate some money for us. So some of the asset forfeiture money now is going to go for the actual building itself. So
the drainage that we have, obviously, it's gonna depend on how they do their parking. What we did is put a main line there, it cost us them to do that, and however they design it, because whatever it gets designed there has to be designed for the master plan, because you all have other buildings you're gonna put there. So whatever we do, we need to do it once, and we'll work with him, with the
Part of our
architects.
services includes a civil engineer, so we have a civil engineer on staff as part of our team, and he will be working with your city engineer to make sure that all the drainage calculations, all the water infrastructure, everything is set in place. So whatever we are holding on our property, we can properly bleed into the city system.
So I guess then my question would be, if in this contract, while that's having to do with the infrastructure, not the actual construction or design of the building itself, is that something that can be incorporated as a phase here? Because if action begins to take place for the design based on the infrastructure, that's a portion of the funding that would have to be done first, and then until that gets done, then you know how much money you have left for an actual building. And I think, Chief, what's the percentage of the forfeiture that can go to directly, and how much does the city have to match?
we still haven't heard from the actual asset forfeiture program as to exactly how much. I think that we already sent them the cost that Mr. Cruz already gave us, so they're looking at that as well.
Do you have any kind of, from other projects, what the city's match would be?
Yeah, the only answer we got so far, Mayor, was the fact that we couldn't fund it all completely. So they're still trying to It's one of those unique kind of situations. Obviously, as a forfeiture, money can be utilized for equipment, furniture, stuff like that. But since we asked for infrastructure, for drainage improvement there in that area, they're trying to get some legal answers on that as well. So we haven't had an answer on that.
So,
That's not something that you haven't had to deal with in the past, is that correct?
Correct. As that becomes available, then we will work with your city and to make sure that whatever comes out of that, then we obviously have to design toward that.
that almost sounds like it's going back to the funding issue, because you mentioned we need to see how much money is going to be
Right,
for
and that goes, I'm just wanting to find out that if we're eliminating that there's nothing else within the contract itself that confines us to a time frame. Like when I started with that first paragraph, if we can go back to this contract and take a look, that I know you've taken some things out, but there's a few that kind of stay out lagging, that make references to other areas that no longer are there. Can we clean that up? And I think that this is one that I'd like to be able to make sure that if we're gonna eliminate that there's nothing else that brings us back to a time frame, since,
Council, is there any way maybe that we could add a paragraph that would address that?
Fine, not a problem.
request it as long as Mr. Alvarado is amenable to it.
That's fine, not a problem.
Because if there's references in other portions of it, if we add a paragraph to the contract that would address that, availability of funding, then it would kind of address it throughout the other references as well.
look at, I've got a few other highlighted areas on the contract. Yes.
The drainage, obviously, when they get going, the financing that you all are gonna secure has to be, coordinated with them, because we can't do that without this, in other
Right,
words.
that's correct.
This can be first, but they can't do their building and with their drainage without that line being installed.
Correct.
In other words, that's the first phase before we kick into.
Or concurrently, but
Okay.
one can't be way ahead of the, well, one can, but not that building in front of this.
Okay, makes sense. If you look at changes in the work, this would be, I guess, Article 3.6.5.
Yes,
Council, that also talks on some time and extensions on contract time for works. This is for changes, subject to the provisions of 4.3. I'm not sure if that goes to 4.3, the one that we were discussing. So that might be another one to look at.
It goes to 4.3 regarding additional services.
4.3, okay.
Yes, 4.34 is the one that you would like to
Right.
eliminate with a 1 year.
So this is just in general.
Yes.
Yes, I want to ask on Article 7, this is on the copyrights and licenses, Section 7.2. If at any point, let's say that you go through the design, and that's been approved, at some point, either the funding's going to be late or something changes, and the contract doesn't go through as far as the actual building. You've already done the design. Now, it says that you are the owners of that design, but if we've paid for that, how does that happen? Let's say funding has to be in 2 years from now, and we're not gonna be able to do anything. And so your services are not gonna last 2 years, I don't think, under this contract.
Sure, we'll only get to that certain point
that
of the
you've
contract
done.
that we've done, yes, ma'am.
So does that design can we then come later and say, we've paid for your services to design?
No, according to this, and under state law, if I'm not mistaken, the property of the drawings are the architect and the consultant.
Even though we pay you for the work,
That's correct.
we can't use that.
No, ma'am.
But Mayor and Mr. Alvarado, Section 7.2 goes on to say the owner shall be permitted to retain copies, including electronic format and reproducible copies.
Right, that's
Right.
once we complete the design and everything, then we submit this to you for your use, for your records.
Is that the question that the mayor?
I'm asking
No.
if can we build it after, even though they designed it, can we go back and build it at a later certain?
If you're asking if we need to wait, let's say we design it, funding's not available to 2 years afterwards, then we will at that time fulfill our contractual obligation to oversee it, because we do have the schematic design, design development, construction documents. We'll go through the bidding process, and then we have the last final phase, which is the construction administration and then the warranty phase.
If you stay on it?
Yes, ma'am.
If you were not to stay on this project, you take that design with you?
I don't know that another architect would want to take that liability, since they weren't the ones who designed it. I think is the correct answer, because we designed it, we engineered it, so that's why they're our property. So I don't know, I would ask legal, maybe look into it a little bit more. I don't believe so, no, ma'am.
And experience on that as well. Usually when something like that occurs and you go with another engineer, another architect, as Mr. Alvarado has mentioned, if you hire somebody else, they're not going to want to take on the liability of whatever has already been done. Is that your experience as well, Mr. Cruz?
You know, in 2 years, what you do is they get paid up to whatever the contract, 80% or whatever, and the project can be shelved for 2 years. And then at the time you decide to build it, you go back to them and the final 20% and you build it. But if you go to another architect, I mean, nobody's going to sign, it's going to have to be redone.
Okay, under 9.8, Article 9, we have a reference. It says the owner's rights to use the architect's instruments of service in the event of a termination of this agreement are set forth in Article 7, Section 11.9. I couldn't find what 11.9. I think you eliminated some of these. I looked for 11.9 and I didn't find it.
11.9 was one of the ones we eliminated, and it's under, let me look at what 11.9 was, but it says paragraph deleted. Compensation for use of architect's instruments or service. If the owner terminates the architect for convenience under section 9.5, or the architect terminates his agreement, the owner shall pay a licensing fee as compensation for the owner's continued use of the instruments of service, solely for the purpose of completing, using, and maintaining. So I eliminated that section. So
Kind of the question I was asking.
yes.
I guess just rectify that, because you've eliminated it. We don't have reference to it anymore. And I don't know, we would be referencing anything when it comes to just the owner's rights would be what he just stated under 9.8. I mean, Article 7. Article 7 has to match what you've just eliminated as well.
I will eliminate section, I will request to eliminate 11.9, Mayor, from 9.8.
And that whatever's left rectifies back to the gist of Article 7.
Yes, Mayor.
Under 11.8.2, I just need to understand this. For reimbursable expenses, the compensation shall be the expenses incurred by the architect and the architect's consultant plus 10% of the expenses incurred. I don't understand that. Does that mean there's two types of compensation? There are actual expenses and then we pay them something on top of that?
No, that's just for any reimbursables. If there's any reimbursables that need to come back, it's just at a 1.1% or a 1.
We would reimburse you what
Correct.
you spent, and then we have to pay you 10% on top of that?
It's a 10%, yes, ma'am.
Why would we pay you that?
It's for whatever, if there's any administration or anything that needs to be done from whoever we're getting reimbursed from. If we need to eliminate it, we can eliminate that 10%.
I would. I don't want to pay you more, but I want to pay you what you spent.
That's not a problem at all.
Okay, we can eliminate that. And then the interest rate, you have a 6% per, per annum. And we have on the 6% is based on best going rate that you have. Can that be negotiated? On,
If it
that's
was
the very next
negotiated.
pair, 11.10.2. If we were late, we shouldn't be late, but it's 6%. Is that typical?
Pretty
In the
typical.
practice?
Yes, ma'am.
Council, is that typical?
That's what I've seen in the past, Mayor. But I mean, you can attempt to negotiate with them
Negotiable?
on that.
4?
Yes, ma'am, that's fine.
Okay. That's all I have. That's all I have on the contract. Are there any other questions in council? I guess for approval, I'd like to be able to see the final contract with all the inclusions and maybe the cleanup.
Yes, Mayor, I'll be making changes to 4.34, 9.8 by eliminating 11.9. And then under 11.8.2, I'm going to eliminate and the architect's consultant plus 10%. And then 11.10.2, it's going to go from 6% to 4%.
Also to eliminate 4.3.4.
Yes, that was the first one I mentioned. And actually, we're going to eliminate it, but come up with some language that'll allow for the funding so that there's not a time limit on that.
Okay, good.
Come up with some language on that.
Okay. Should we bring it back then that way?
We can do that, or you can do it subject to the discussion tonight and legal review, however this commission would like to do it, Mayor.
And I want to see the language you include.
Okay.
So clean it up and then eliminate the language you're including, and then if all of that meets your agreement as well, and here we can approve it. I just want to make sure that that part is covered.
The only thing I would add to that is that if we could have that by the next meeting. And so in order to make sure that we do have it by the next meeting, and that it will be on the next agenda, would you recommend that we just table the item?
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem.
And I'd make a motion to table.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor state aye.
Aye.
It has been tabled till the next time. Thank you very much,
Till
sir.
the next meeting.
All right, item C, consider authorizing the interim city manager to enter into a contract for the lighting management with Envire Light Solutions LLC from Edinburgh, Texas. Ms. Gonzalez.
On March 24th of this year, the commission gave authorization to EnviroLight to perform a lighting audit for the city. EnviroLight has provided the analysis, which is attached in a proposal to the commission for review, and they had also drafted a contract for approval.
I guess to try to understand what's being proposed here, it's a 7-year term at $6,500 a month for a total financing of $466,991, which after financing at the end of 7 years would be $534,000. Would that be correct, Ms. Gonzalez?
Yes, it is.
And then, of course, they talk about a savings, but we would actually have a cash outlay of $6,600 per month.
Correct.
Yeah. I think that, from my perspective, whatever monies right now, I don't think we have. I don't know why we don't have the audit before us. I don't know when we're going to get that audit, sir.
Mayor, Commission, we were advised that the audit will be ready by next commission meeting.
And I think if we look at the financing from, I don't know what the final numbers are, but it sounds like we're still coming up below or over budgeted, and we're dipping back into the reserves to try to meet the expenses. This, I suspect, is going to get paid from the general budget, and I think that until we are able to stabilize what we're spending, and I honestly think we need to put our monies into streets. And so I just don't think that this is time for us to entertain this contract. I don't know how we're going to pay it. The financing is the difficult part when we're still below, and we're going to come up below or over budgeted and having to meet that So I'm asking that, and considering there would be $534,000 towards the end of the financing, I'd rather invest that in something else. I don't think we should approve this contract. We don't have the funding. Are there any questions, anything else from the?
Mr. Phillips, do you have something you'd like to add?
Appreciate the opportunity to meet with you. I understand about the funding of it. However, if you look at the analysis that we did, you will see that in there is going to be a substantial savings to the city over that period of time. You're looking at on a monthly basis of a savings of approximately $9,849 a month off your electric bill, and you're looking at a monthly payment of $6,600, leaving a monthly positive cash flow of $3,250 a month. So the funding for the project comes right out of your savings without affecting your current budget. Your current budget includes the higher energy cost and usage, so that by saving that energy, by changing the lights, you're going to end up saving about $3,250 a month, plus have the improved lighting that's needed for the city. So as far as the funding portion of it, the funding of it is paid through the savings.
I guess, you know, one of the things the mayor alluded to is the fact that currently we're looking at a budget shortfall for operating expenses for this existing year. And that's what's projected. Of course, we always hope that's going to turn around, and we always hope that by tightening the belt, things are going to straighten up a little bit. But that is just a reality that we're dealing with right now. Having said that, we're also, I'm assuming, the city's going to start talking budget for the next year. Chief, don't we usually start that like in July?
As a matter of fact, we already started, Mayor.
Right.
We already sent out, we're going to start having our meetings already.
And so, you know, I would recommend that that we consider this when we're doing the budget to see if that's something that we can do. Then the other thing that I would like to see, and it's my personal opinion on it, is to have our financial advisor also review the document to let us know, you know, I know that you're making the assumption, you know, based on your experience and past projects that you've completed on this, but I think on a cash flow, the positive monthly cash flow that you're mentioning, just so that, you know, all things considered, if you will, if we could have the city's financial advisor take a look at that and maybe verify or confirm or offer an opinion on that at the very least. And then once we have that done, then have this conversation during the budget workshops that the commission has, and see if at that point it's something that that we can say, you know, we're going to have a positive monthly cash flow, so it won't actually impact. And if it doesn't, well, then that question kind of answers itself at that point. You know, but I guess, and not that we don't trust, you know, your work, but just because, you know, we have our own financial advisor that looks out for the best interest of the city. And so I think having another set of eyes looking at it with just our best interest in mind might help in a decision-making process in the future.
Right. One of the other things that that we do, should the council have to go forward, we would have contacted AEP to come in and do their independent review of this, because there are rebates to the city for going with energy efficient lighting. And so what we have found through throughout doing the city of Edinburgh, the city of Hidalgo, Falfurrias, and so forth, is that we have always been conservative in our numbers compared to what the numbers AEP comes through with. And they are an independent, there's no association with AEP whatsoever, and it's an independent review that is done on the energy savings. And they will then notify the city exactly what the rebate is, and that check is paid directly to the city, not to us. So that's money that goes back into your coffers immediately. So we do have checks and balances to ensure that the numbers that we give you are absolutely accurate.
Any other questions? If not, then my understanding, we can take no action and then review it back later on. Okay. All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Under D, consider authorizing the interim city manager to submit a grant application for the 2015 Local Food Promotion Program funded through the United States Department of Agriculture, Agriculture Marketing Services Division to conduct a one-year feasibility study for the San Juan Farmers Market Square. Ms. Borrego?
Commission, Mayor. The USDA is requesting application for fiscal year 2015's Local Food Promotion Program, or LFPP. LFPP provides funding for both the planning and implementation phases of projects created to increase consumption of local produce and provide a new market opportunity to local agriculturalists. Farmers markets are often awarded and have been a successful strategy for bringing affordable, healthy food options into communities. Staff is proposing the creation of a San Juan Farmers Market Square as a means of providing our primary low-income population with improved access to affordable, healthy, local-grown produce. In order to ensure the farmers market is a successful and sustainable business enterprise, staff will encourage vendors to accept WIC and SNAP benefits. Several studies have shown that the acceptance of food assistance programs can widen customer base and raise revenue. Overall, the market is expected to strengthen our community, improve economic development of our area, provide agricultural produce with marketing opportunities, and increase overall consumption of locally grown produce. To guarantee the proposal is a viable option, staff is requesting grant funding, approximately $9,350 from the USDA, to hire a consultant to conduct a one-year feasibility study. The study will include 4 major objectives: to gather information about the potential users and needs, identify desired facility options, services and sites, estimate costs and economic impact, and collect information on potential partnerships. The San Juan EDC is willing to provide and exceed the required 25% in-kind match, approximately $4,800 for the project. In-kind will consist of time used to perform activities on behalf of the city. This includes hours spent creating a list of potential consultants to conduct the feasibility study, setting up meetings with the potential consultant to gauge which best fits the scope of the project, officially hiring the consultant, setting up meetings throughout the course of the study to ensure milestones are met, attend meetings held by the consultant to gather public input for the study, visit potential project sites, attend promotional events to inform the public about the study, its findings, and gather further information over the course of the project. The City of San Juan will provide additional in-kind match, approximately $1,700, by providing payment to the City Attorney to review, draft, and amend all MOUs and contractual agreements between the City, San Juan EDC, and the consultant. If there's any other questions, that concludes my presentation.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I want to ask you about the total of the grant is all the money that's needed. Is that correct?
Yes.
And the matching is 50%.
25%.
25%. And then the in-kind is approximately 1,700, you said.
For the City of San Juan, yes.
Okay, so it's in-kind, so in other words, we're not going to...
We don't have to show any cash. It's just as we do the contractual agreements, we do it through the City Attorney. So I would submit the receipt that we've paid them off, and that counts as the in-kind.
Okay, so then for the work that you would do, counsel, that would be billed to us, or you're giving that service?
She needs a bill, she said. You'd get a bill. I guess you would get my bill, take it out and give it to this grant?
Yes. Right. It wouldn't be donated time. It would be, we're paying to go over the contract. I'm just using that as in-kind, when we usually just pay it off.
Because we are going to pay it. So basically, right, the funding is going to come from the money set up for the attorney?
Yes.
Okay.
What's the deadline for this?
This is due at the end of the week.
At the end of the week. Do they require a funding resolution because of the cash in-kind value? They
don't require a resolution, but there's Index A that would be signed by the city manager and San Juan EDC, letting them know that they're confirming to the amount.
They're confirming to
yes.
And talk about hiring a consultant, what do you envision that to be? Because I know that Texas A&M AgriLife was doing a farmer's market at the Nolana North San Juan Park, and I know that Ms. Barbara Storrs had done several feasibility studies over that period. Is there any way that, I mean, I guess I'm just looking at, as opposed to reinventing the wheel, using some of the information that's already been gathered and captured for that. Are you aware of the farmers markets that were?
Yes,
Oh,
I'm
okay.
aware of the other farmers markets
Yeah.
within the other cities.
Well, no, within our city.
Within our city?
Yes, it was at the North San Juan Park.
Oh, no, I wasn't familiar with that. But the funding would be used for the planning phase. So in the case that we did receive information for a previous farmers market, that would be integrated into the current feasibility study that would be conducted.
And is this, and when we're talking about right now would be the consultant, does this have a phase 2, this grant?
Yes, it does.
Is that what we're missing kind of, when they'll go into the actual funding for a farmer's market?
This money would be used to do the feasibility study. If found feasible, we could reapply next year, and that would be used for the implementation of the actual plan.
And I've seen it used, I don't know who else is using it here locally. I've seen it used on the east side, and it has very good results because it allows the people to use their food stamps and their state assistance to acquire produce, and that's probably one of the most expensive things for them to purchase. So it's a very good program. But it's a year long before we can actually.
Well, a year long because the plan asks that it be, you have a year span for the project.
Okay.
But in order to sign up for funding next year, we would have to finish it within 6 months. Thus far, the quotes that we've received say that they can complete the feasibility study in 4 months. So it would be within the project timeframe.
It's just that we earmark those monies already, because this has been this year's budget,
Yes.
to make sure that as we're signing that we have that available, at least committed for this.
Next
this
budget,
project.
annual, yes.
Any other questions? Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor state aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you, Ms.
Thank
Borrego.
you.
Item E, consider preliminary and final plat approval of the Alanis Business Park and subdivision being of 1.564 acre tract of land out of Lot 12, San Juan Hacienda Estate Subdivision Unit Number 1, located approximately 500 feet north of Hall Acres Road along the east side of Veterans Boulevard as requested by Meldon and Hunt. Mr. Cervantes.
Yes, the applicant is proposing to subdivide 1.564 acres into one lot that will be used for commercial purposes. She is proposing to build a small truck stop with a small office in the property. There is no sanitary sewer available at this time, and the proposed office will need to use an on-site sewage facility that meets the CEQ standards and the Hidalgo County Health Department standards. It is noted that the project engineer is requesting a variance to not have to connect to the sanitary sewer system based on the fact that the nearest available sewer is located several hundred feet to the north of the proposed development. The applicant agreed to pay a prorated fee of $3,358.78 per acre for future sewer improvements. Something like this was done in a previous subdivision last year, so it's following the same pattern. During their May 7th meeting, the Planning and Zoning Commission unanimously recommended approval of the preliminary and final plat and granting the variance request with a 5-0 vote.
You mentioned that we've done, did we not do that for the properties immediately to the south of this one?
Gino's Business Park.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that hasn't developed?
The subdivision got recorded, but it has not developed. This property is already developing. They're already clearing the land, and they're going to build very soon after the subdivision gets recorded. So this project is almost ready to go for a small truck stop.
Nice.
And the zoning is in place, is heavy commercial.
I see it close to that, our folks in that subdivision has that flooding issue, and
Yes.
that's outside of that zone, the flooding zone?
This property is not part of that flood zone. It's very nearby, but it's not part of the flood.
Are there any other questions?
Just make sure that that they're aware that they need to make sure that they're cleared with yourself and fire and police. It was one of the issues, I think, on that Gino Business Park is that they took off and were getting ready to start, and then they ran into issues with fire safety. So before they kind of take off and do anything, check with fire safety first.
Yeah, we had a subdivision review meeting. There's a water line along Veterans. It needs to be activated. Something happened and it got deactivated. It just needs to be activated. There's a fire hydrant already there. It's just a matter of fixing that line and paying the fees and recording the plat so that they can develop the property.
Not, is there a motion for approval? Is there a second? All in favor state aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Next item, F, consider preliminary and final plat approval of the Los Arboles subdivision being 9.95 acre tract of land out of Lot 15, Block B, John Clausner subdivision located approximately 500 feet south of Eldora Road along the east side of Raul Longoria as requested by Fulcrum Consulting Services. Mr. Cervantes.
Yes, the applicant is proposing to subdivide 9.9 acres into a 41 lot subdivision. The applicant is proposing to have 39 residential and 2 commercial lots. The 2 lots that are facing Raul Longoria Road are proposed for commercial use. The developer is proposing to have an interior street that connects from Raul Longoria Road to Dos Arbolitos and Cedro Avenues to the east. The proposed subdivision is in line with the zoning designated for the area. The proposed residential lots will average 60 feet by 115 feet for a total square footage of 6,900. The proposed homes for the residential lots are brick homes, as I understand. Staff recommends approval of the preliminary and final plat for the subdivision as contingent on compliance with all the requirements listed in your packet. Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval subject to the conditions unanimously on May 7th.
There was a mention about adjoining streets. It's not going to be open to the adjoining neighborhood, right?
Yeah, it's going to design, it's designed to connect. If you look at the subdivision to the north.
Are they going to give up some lots? Then how do you connect to those streets?
They're going to have a street. If you look at the subdivision to the north, it's designed to connect to the south.
Okay.
So Arbolitos Avenue, it has a dead end to the south.
Right.
And Cedro Avenue as well has a dead end to the south. So
right.
When that subdivision was developed, that was the intent, is that whenever the property to the south.
So there'll be a separate street.
Yes.
Behind the houses.
Yes, but it's gonna connect. Both subdivisions are gonna connect, so that if you have a family member in one subdivision, you can just walk to the.
So the houses are going to be facing the ones. It's going to be a one-street subdivision.
One street, yes.
The houses are going to be facing inward or
inward,
outward?
Inward.
So the street running in the back is going to be on the back side of the homes on the north. The street runs on the north side.
Back, they're gonna be
Then
back to back. Yeah, you need,
show me which one.
it's like this. See it?
So there's already dedicated right away. Is the road
It's a
developed on the
continuation.
north side?
This
Backyard
street
to
is
backyard.
already dedicated.
And right now, there's just a
That plat
cedar
that's in
fence.
here.
Okay. This.
Yes,
So they'll eliminate the cedar fence
yes.
and then continue on with the road.
The
basically connect them.
streets are gonna connect, right?
So on the north
and
side,
over here.
it's already existing.
Yes. Which is a kind of ideal. It makes for these neighborhoods to be more walkable. You connect the 2 neighborhoods. That way, if you
Remember,
want.
this is the property that was initially going to be considered for multifamily under the tax credit program.
Yes.
And the residents came in and they preferred to see something developed like this.
Yes, this property was, we had a very controversial zoning last year. There were some proposed apartments. And back then, the property belonged to the Hidalgo County Housing Authority. They sold the property to this developer, and this developer he wants to develop what we have in the zoning.
South of Arbolito, it's going to open
Yes,
to the sub.
it's gonna. This street is already there, and it dead ends right there.
Yeah.
Same thing with Cedro. It dead ends right there, and right now I think there's a barricade. So whenever this subdivision develops, the street is gonna connect right there, and right there. And that makes both neighborhoods very walkable. If you have a friend that lives over there, you can walk there, or vice versa. You don't have to go all the way around.
Is that a detention pond in the center?
Well, that's going to be done away with. The detention pond that was originally proposed, that will be removed because that's a maintenance problem for the city. And when we met with the engineer, we told them that needs to be removed, and they agreed. It's going to be 2 lots. This will be replaced by 2 residential lots.
And so they'll just connect to the existing outfall, and it'll be curb and gutter.
Yes.
Drainage system already there.
They're not requesting any variances. It's going to bring up the tax base. 2 new businesses also.
Can you satisfied that the drainage that connecting to is going to handle the additional?
We've discussed the different options
to make sure that we're not going to create a
water, sewer, and drainage.
Okay. Right. Is there any other questions? Not, is there a motion for approval?
Motion to approve as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor state aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Cervantes. There's the consent agenda on the minutes. Are there any questions? Not, is there a motion for approval?
So
Is
moved.
there a second?
Second.
All in favor state aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor state aye.
Aye.
This meeting is adjourned at 7:01.